Welcome to our session today entitled Change is Essential, How Do We Change Right? I am Dr. Brittany Singleton, the Academic Affairs Manager here at D2L. I'm coming into this role as a former educator and administrator with over 15 years of experience. And in this role, I work in the platform of doing strategic leadership with guidance and support to help develop the innovation programs for the company. So glad to be here, and I'll let Dr. Grigsby introduce herself.
Good afternoon to you all. I'm Kathleen Grigsby, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Jackson Public School District in Mississippi. I come with about 25 years and over of educational experience in the K-12 setting, but also just a little known fact about me. Both of my parents are deaf, and even when my dad was at the local community college teaching sign language, I was in the room giving all his students the answers. So I think if I wanted to count that, maybe I've been teaching since maybe 12 years old, maybe, but that's just a little bit about me.
So today's session will be more so of a discussion format instead of being formal. So we'll have slides during the presentation to where you'll be able to engage with us. But we'll go ahead and get started. We hope that this information is beneficial to you all, and we'll be talking about change management today. So our first question says, how do we bring your organization's stakeholders on board initially to break barriers and get buy-in?
And so one of the things that we did was, start with communication of the shared vision and mission. You want to make sure that we establish a clear vision, invite others' ideas, leverage feedback, and communicate the progress. So in just a minute, we're going to roll over to the agenda for today. And it's really not quite an agenda, but what I'm going to share as part of change management is how our district went through the process of our strategic plan. So with the shared vision and mission, planning, implementation, refining, and the evaluation cycle. Just a little about our district in Jackson. You all may be familiar with the water crisis. It's been on national news. We've got some serious water infrastructure issues, and as a result of that, it impacts the closure of schools, et cetera, et cetera. But also, we were in the process about 5-6 years ago of being taken over by the state. We were a failing district, and I happened to be a part of the Better Together Commission, and this is where the governor of Mississippi, the mayor of the city of Jackson, I'm trying to think of all of the different parties that came together and said, you know what, for Jackson Public Schools, there's got to be a different way. We cannot assume the responsibility on the state level of just taking over schools and not allowing the schools to figure out something innovative. In the meantime, while all of that was going on, and you saw all the different publications earlier about the negativity surrounding our city and our district, I was here at Obama Magnet. It's an elementary school, and it's an IB elementary school, PYP school. And I have here Stop Dreaming and Start Doing, because in the midst of all that was going on, our school was the #1 school in the state of Mississippi, back to back. And so that's what the state was struggling with, the fact that, hey, we've got the #1 school in a failing district, and yet we're getting ready to take the school district over. So just wanted you to know that. Strategic planning, the 5-year timeline. So in 2019, we developed the mission and the vision. We, year 1, got in the trenches of planning. Year 2, planning and implementation. Year 3, planning, implementation, and refinement. And as you can see, in 2023, we're getting ready to go into our last year of the strategic plan. So we're evaluating, we're getting a sense of where we are and what do we want our next 5-year strategic plan look like. So we're going to make some connections in just a minute about what we just shared thus far to change. What did it take for us to change not just the perception, but the reality of what existed within our school? And once we upload this PowerPoint to the app, I've incorporated the strategic plan link because you'll begin to see those specific words, the planning, implementation, and refining within that strategic plan, just as an additional resource. And so this is our strategic plan. And just to kind of give you a sense of who all these beautiful folks are, in my top right corner, that's the mayor of Jackson, Chokwe Lumumba. And then above is my superintendent, Dr. Eric Green. We've got, at the time he was our chief of staff, Dr. Michael Cormack. In the lower corner here, some city officials, council members, representatives from the governor's office, and then we've got families and communities. And just to give you a sense, in order for us to come up with that third way, we had to innovatively, collaboratively incorporate all the different aspects of the community. And so that particular day was the launch of our strategic plan. And we're excited about that.
So we have a quote here that says, "Without change, there is no innovation, creativity, or incentive for improvement. Those who initiate change will have a better opportunity to manage." William Pollard. So I want to give you all a couple of minutes to write down your thoughts about this quote or to share out with your neighbor what your thoughts are, and then we'll discuss that. Okay, we'll take some volunteers to share out what was discussed.
Hello and thank you. One of the things that come to mind, and we were just beginning to talk when the time was up, but when I think about change and the importance of it, I think about the fact that the only constant that we have in life is change. You know, if you like something, stick around, it'll change. If you don't like it, stick around and it will change. And then when I see that this is tied to innovation, what comes to mind is that if we stay the same, then we're not embracing new technology, we're not being creative, and it almost also brings to mind what's going on with AI. We can, you know, turn our heads and pretend that it's not happening, you know, try to squelch it, but it is a reality. And when we find ways to embrace these innovations, then it gives us a opportunity to be creative and to find ways to come up with ways to improve. And I'll stop now, otherwise I'll start giving a full-blown lecture.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share. The one thing that I saw, as soon as I saw that without change there's no innovation, I thought about those IBM engineers way back in the day, and they went, there will never be a personal computer. There's nothing that small. And they refused to change. And we know what happened because we are living it. And we see we've got the personal computers now. The thing is that there are some of them, and other people embrace the change. And now we've got computers in front of us, in our classrooms, in our homes, and some people have more than one. And now we walk with computers in our pockets because we embraced that change and we were willing to step outside the box. And now because of that, we can go ahead and, as Bea was saying, we can embrace the AIs because it's there. One of my daughter, she was a little bit technologically challenged, and she became a realtor. And one of the things she did, I saw her changing and growing because she embraced the change, and she said, I'm going to do all that it takes. So she called me and she said, Mom, look at what I did with ChatGPT. And I haven't even tried ChatGPT yet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if she did it, I've got to go ahead and now do it. But she popped in all the different parameters, and it created an introduction that was really personable and very warm and reflected her personality so perfectly. Everything was perfect. And I believe that that's what we all have to do. We've got to go ahead in order to have a better tomorrow. We've got to embrace change. Thank you.
Have anyone else that wants to share?
Thank you. One thing that came to mind to me, and I was writing out a little sermon here or something, but to summarize, especially for larger organizations like schools, like corporations, there's a temptation to stay in place because it's pretty much worked. You've got some more or less proven results. Things are working pretty well. And change invites chaos, and chaos is frightening. But you've really just got to ask yourself, are you okay with it more or less works? It's pretty good. That's the question for you.
When I saw this quote, I immediately thought of the ever-changing generations that enter the doors of the universities and colleges each year. And, as somebody that grew up before cell phones existed, well, they existed, but before they were readily available for us, and having a daughter who hasn't had a world without technology at her fingertips, it's just really important. If I'm not behind it, then I'll get behind it. Does that make sense? If I'm not in front of it, I'll get behind it. So I think that it's really important to be the one to initiate the change, to make sure that we are continuing to teach those generations that enter through the door and really trust that these changes that are being made are just to advance our future.
Thank you for sharing this. We're just talking how we all want to innovate, be creative, incentive, but we never look at the underlying factor for that is change, and we resist. But some of the things folks said about technology, ChatGPT, phones, I'll speak for myself. There's some stuff where I'm ready to change right away. We've all adopted these smartphones very easily, for some easily, for some it's challenging. And I always wonder why is some change easily adopted while some it takes forever? And if you have any thoughts.
I certainly have some thoughts on that, but you're going to see what that thought is. I was smiling as each of you, shared your thoughts and your thinking, because as you see some additional quotes, I think we'll all have an aha moment, but just hold tight. We'll get to what my belief is using a quote from someone else. With that said, thank you all so much for sharing. And again, we'll reveal what happened in our district as well. So in the planning phase, we started 2019. So of course, everybody knows pretty much in 2019-2020 school year, COVID hit. But this was what we were planning to do, to focus on message framing, consistently put out images of change, to regulate and be aware of emotion. So maybe we're hitting on something there. There's something deeper there, so that we can ensure that we're honoring how different constituents feel during the process of change, understanding the audience motivation. And remember, in our case, we had the audience of the state, the parents, the community. It was a wide and broad audience. And then mastering the art of timing. So that was part of, once you get a chance to look at the strategic plan, you'll get a sense that in years 1 and 2, based on various components of our plan, this is what we focused on. So already we're going to be up to another quote for you all to think about.
So our next quote says, "Culture does not change because we desire to change it. Culture changes when the organization is transformed. The culture reflects the realities of people working together every day." Francis Hesselbein. So the same protocol that y'all had last time, we're going to do it again this time. Share it with your neighbor, and then we'll report back. Okay, so before I get you all to share back, I wanted to think about or talk about some experiences I had as an administrator and implementing change during COVID-19. So I was entering into administration during that transition and working with staff in special education, and they're not knowing how to actually work and change with the times. But remembering that when you talk about culture, you're also talking about the mission, the vision, and the values. So making sure that you all are on the same page and discussing those things of where you're headed and what that looks like for the organization. So I've shared my experiences. Let's talk about you all's. Not all at once.
Thank you. Not to be a mic hog or anything, but this quote took me a second to wrap my head around, and for whatever reason, I finally started thinking about the difference between culture and tradition, and if there's a difference, is there space for both of them? And I think a lot of people might think of it, culture versus tradition, as change, innovation, creativity versus staying in place, stuck in the mud, not seeing the forest for the trees, that kind of thing. But I don't think that's true per se. I think that culture is something that's in flux, and building and growing does not mean the abandonment of what was already there. It just means the adaptation with a conversation happening. Hopefully everyone has space for the path that's being formed.
Kia ora. My name's Yvonne Lim, and I'm from New Zealand. And I just wanted, because this is quite, I guess, timely for us, we're in a nexus point at the moment where New Zealand is shifting in terms of its re-embracing of its, bicultural nature and embracing of its indigenous culture. And that's a significant part of why we as an organisation need to transform, because currently, if we think about our indigenous groups, the Māori continuously sit in the wrong side of statistics. And from an education perspective, it's really important, if we're actually looking at equitable outcomes for our learners, our future generations, that we look to really address the issues associated with not understanding and embracing their culture. And so that for us is a real catalyst for transformation. So if ultimately our vision is to see a successful nation, we need to see a successful First Nation as well. So, for me, that's a significant impetus for us to see a transformed organisation and, a transformed future.
So I challenge you all to, as you leave the session today and you go back to your organizations, think about what the culture is like. Think about your vision, your mission, your values. Take some time to jot down a couple of notes of what you think it should be for the organization that you work with.
I was going to say that our organizations are very complex. They're made up of a variety of different structures, our Board of Governors, our Faculty Senate, all those governing agencies. So, and they often approach change from different frameworks. So I think that's where it just becomes very complex.
And I so appreciate some of what you all shared, particularly from New Zealand. My mom's Australian, and so I definitely, have heard some things about what may be going on, particularly in the United States, where we've got indigenous people as well, Australia, New Zealand, and a few more other countries. But, and just as a point of personal privilege, we were talking yesterday, and I don't want this moment to pass. I do want to extend an appreciation for you all being here to support women of color in the organization, trying to share what we've experienced in our organizations for change. So thank you for saying that. And next, we've got the implementation phase. So what do you notice here? You see in the blue, we're still regulating and we're being aware of emotions during this time. We're still putting out images of change, but you know, in order for you to implement changes, you've got to lead by example. You've got to leverage the power of repetition in the messaging goal, and you've got to show the benefits. And every quarter, after the students would take the assessments, after we would meet at quarterly meetings, we would actually go through to make sure that we're showing those benefits. And just as just sharing our focus strategy around academics, we did the A, B's, and C's. We did A, acceleration, B, balanced assessment, and C, culture of coaching with observation and feedback, just as an example. But your organization, wherever you are, would need to ensure that they've got some type of focus strategy and obsess over that strategy, whatever it is. And for the last 4 years, A, B, and C has been there. You ask anybody, even down to the kids, what is the focused academic strategy? Everybody's going to be able to tell you that. Just one example, again, around the academic component. And an example of some repetitive images of change. So in the top corner, you'll see myself and my other colleagues. We've begun to celebrate the small wins. And we show pictures of, I mean, just things that probably normally wouldn't be a win. We celebrated it. At the bottom, you'll see the governor's wife as well as district leadership. Folks are coming into our schools now, and they're seeing that, oh my goodness, Jackson Public School District is moving from an F to a D, and then we've just recently, last year, moved from a D to a C, and we were aiming for a B this year, and we're waiting on test scores to come out for that. But in the middle, you've got Congressman Benny Thompson, and if you're familiar with who he is, from Mississippi, and he's come out because we've apparently, you know, planted a spot on the map or something for him to come and share, and then you'll see our innovation. We've got families and kids engaged in virtual reality. We've gotten the STEAM project just off and running. And so you begin to see those repetitive images of change. And this was my answer for earlier. So if we could, in unison, just say this quote together on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Slowness to change usually means fear of the new. And so that is precisely why I believe that given the historical implications of the state of Mississippi, there was fear of the new. We're an urban school district with 99% African American students, high poverty levels, socioeconomic statuses at the bottom, as well as, I'm trying to think of, it seems like Mississippi tend to fall at the bottom under many categories. But what I can appreciate through our strategic plan is this intense focus on the planning phases, the implementation phase, and you're getting ready to see what this refining stage looks like. And during the refining stage, being prepared to compromise. We're still showing the images of change. We're still showing the benefits. We're leveraging the power of repetition, and we're regulating and being aware of emotion. And during this process, not only did we have COVID, not only did we have our water crisis, and it's still ongoing, but there was also the change of the state of Mississippi's flag. So in the midst of change, we were changing as a district as well. And I'm going to let Brittany share her learning moment, and then I'll share mine.
So my learning moment for change management is that you always have to be a lifelong learner. You always have to be open to change. And like you were stating earlier, fear comes with it, but what happens after you move past the fear? My dad always had a quote where he said, everything changes, nothing stays the same. So I always remember that whenever I'm going through changes. But just being resilient, knowing that you have to have a vision in place of where you want to go, and making sure that you're also communicating that effectively and involving all stakeholders. So I would say this, my learning moment is that embrace change. You know, change is new, but it can be, you know, it's fearful, but embrace it. So many amazing things come from change, but you'll never know unless you jump on the other side of that fear and see what's there.
My learning moment is understanding the power of one, and you're that one. In the middle, you see my husband and my daughter, and as much as, you know, I cherish family moments, I spend most of my time at work. And so you'll see all of my principals, and I say mine because it's almost like they're an extension of relatives to me. And you'll see that we've, this particular picture here is where we're talking about coaching and how everybody needs a coach, but it's the power of one. And I say that because I was that child. I shared that my mom's from Australia and my dad is from America. But both of them, my father black, my mom's white. We didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. Both of my parents are deaf. I learned to sign before learning to speak. We've been homeless at times. We have experienced oppression, you know, because of how folks treated my parents or treated me, and being in an interracial relationship. So I say that that's just really touching the surface of how I feel truly blessed to have moments like this where I can give people, wonderful people like you all, just a little glimpse into my life, and understanding that even though I've been in Jackson Public School District for 22 years plus, I feel that it's my passion to be there because I feel that I can influence change. And it's happening, you know? So I'm excited about that, and that's been my learning moment. If you all want to connect with us, this is my email. This is Brittany's email. Feel free to reach out to us if you just say, hey, what did y'all do in this part of the strategic plan, or in change management in a corporation organization as opposed to in a K-12 setting. Feel free to reach out to us. We purposely tried to keep 5 minutes at the end, just in case someone had a burning question that they wanted to ask. And we wanted to be sensitive to your time of ending on time as well. So anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. You brought up the word tradition earlier as it relates to change. And we have a previous, Barbara and I both work for a small private Christian university, and we have a previous president that used the quote, you have to change a lot to stay the same. So I thought that seemed fitting, and maybe to contribute, and just thought you might all appreciate that quote too.
That is phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else Have anything else you want to share? No? Question, comment? Well, if not, we're going to hang around, and we thank you all for coming and appreciate your attendance.